Okay, so I'm going to put this in the beginning of the video. Kind of confusing, but I forgot this during the disassembly of this Electromate. So these little bumpers here on the sides, they have ends on them that you pry out. They're seated back in there. If you can see that or not, but little hooks. Before you start taking it apart, just pop both these sides out and don't pull on it, because what these have is they have these little bumps in them to hold them in. See the hole there where they go in? That's the keeper. So when the case splits apart, the rest of it comes out. But you have to take these corners out first, which kind of snap in there a little bit. And just leave them hang. And when you split the case, then these will come out. When you put it back in, don't forget to put these back in first while you're putting the case back together. Or else be like me and you have to take all the screws out on one side to get this back in. Sorry about that. Okay, video about replacing the battery in this Black & Decker Electromate Plus 300. I believe the 400 will be the same. See the battery that came out of it here. It's a UB 12180. I'm going to be replacing it with a Mighty Mate ML 18-12, I think it is. So when you start, that piece is going to be on the bottom. This piece is really flexible. All you do is, when it's on there, just start a screwdriver under one edge, get one corner out, then the second corner. Once the second corner comes out, it comes off. Do that first. Set that aside. This is still taking apart a bit, so I didn't want to put it all back together and take it apart. So there are multiple screws in here. There's two in the handle. Turn this around here. There's two in the handle. All you need is a regular screwdriver. Here, one here, one here. And you go around the back, there's one here, and here. And then in the other corner, you got one there, at the very end. And you got one here, and here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. They look like these. All the same. So you can't goof that up. Get all the screws out. Slowly pry the edges apart. This piece on the top, the handle, has a piece on each side. The battery is on the bottom, flat, with the terminals toward the front of the unit. So what you want to do is you want to lay the unit on its back once you get everything loosened up. And you want to take this half of the clamshell up in the air, like so. Be Careful not to stretch these out too far. Put these handles, kind of wedge them back in here. And then what I did is I put something under the front, like so. Let's see, make sure I can see everything here. A little closer. Okay, so there's your battery. Positives on the left side of the back, or left side of the front. Negatives over here. This positive side has a red wire. Take your black off first. The size is an 8mm with a nut. And the end, you could just use a regular screwdriver. The end of the bolt, screwdriver or 8mm. Take those off, get a new battery, put it back in. The other problems I had were this tube right here. It goes from the air gauge on the front to the compressor pump. Was shot, gone, broken. Replace that. That has some very strange ends on it, which I'll try to attach in another video, show you. Or the other thing was the airline was also dry rotted pretty bad. So what I had to do was I had to take this unit out on the end, which has 4 screws, take it out, sit it on top, and get all that tubing out from the back, replace it. Now, the problem with replacing it was that the old one, the ends were crimped on by these crimps. That's on both sides. Here, coming out of the compressor, and in the back where the part goes on the pump up things. So the vacuum tubing was easy. Like I said, it has these spring ends. You have to put the spring on first, then push it on real hard. Spring expands, really holds it on there well. I probably have a little extra tubing in there. This, however, was very difficult to find. This is a weird size. It's not quite quarter. So I did the best I could. I put 1/4-inch tubing on there. And along with that tubing, I used some, these type of clamps. Which are for fuel injection, but they're probably the best for oversized tubing, putting oversized tubing on, because they take care of all the sides very well. Squeeze it evenly, proportionately. So I forget what size I used. I'll try and look in here and see. Looks like 9 to 11. So yeah, I actually had the size right. Put a 9 to 11 on there. 9 to 11mm on that end. Or use whatever you got. But I doubt you're going to find tubing like this. This is just a weird size. So, and I also realized you could put a longer piece of tube in. This was only 3 feet, in its entirety. I put 4.5 in there, so I'd have a little more reach. Use the same clamp on the backside. Those were the 2 other issues that I had with it. So reassembly is you just take this, line it back up, slide it together, stand it up if you want, slide your halves back together. Make sure these line up. These are kind of miserable. Line up. And it's kind of tough to put back together because those cables on the battery have been stretched a little bit, which that's what happens when you put something new together. Flip it over. Put all your screws back in. Hold it together tightly when you do so. Here's the new end. Put the clamp on it. Put your screws all back together. And then work this back onto the bottom. You can start on one side like this. You can start on an end. Whatever. This stuff is so flexible that as you go around, just hold it out with a screwdriver and it'll pop right back on there. Again, the battery that's in there is a UB12180. And I used the Mighty Max from Amazon. Good luck. Okay, quick video with this all taken apart, which probably won't be part of the video that I make because I'm not going to take it completely apart again, but the Black & Decker Electromate, this is a 300, the 400 is probably the same. There's the battery, UB12180, big ass battery, and it has these square terminals on it. And the two problems inside were, if you look way in the back, see that right there? That's the air gauge on the front. That goes over to this assembly here on the end, right there. The brass one right here. And that was all dry rotted and falling apart. Here's the show it to you here. This was all dry rotted. Has a little spring for a tightener on the end, but it's just vacuum tubing. That's all it is, basically. Also, the airline was also rotting, as you can see. I wish this thing would focus. That comes in from the back through this little slot here. And then this unit, which is the compressor itself, I removed. You can just take it. It has 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. And go 3 and 4. And this, I just took that out of the way. It goes right back in here. Screws right back in the whole piece. You don't have to take it apart. Just those 4 screws. That makes it a lot easier to get a new piece of line, which I'm going to have to use. These also were crimped on there. In fact, it was crimped right onto the pump, right here. So, the crimp is right here. It was crimped onto the pump. So, I cut that with a moto tool, get it off. You can just use a regular clamp with, and then you can take this other end off and just use a regular clamp on that end, and that fix that. Just route it back through the back. I'm going to put a little longer piece on because there's plenty of room in here to store more airline. So I'm going to make it about twice as long, and hopefully it'll fit in there when I'm done. Okay, watch the other video, or I'll attach this one to the original.